Welcome back to the latest episode of the DCU Experience podcast. Now, as you'll notice this week, it is only me and True. Nick and Garrick are very busy. They could not make it this week. So this is going to kind of be a bit of a filler episode. There were some exciting topics, still very, very exciting topics that we weren't able to cover last time. That means we will not be talking about the latest Peacemaker episode. We're probably going to save at least 3 or maybe 2 episodes, let those build up like we did with the first time we talked about Season 2 of Peacemaker. We talked about the first 3 episodes. We're at least going to wait until the whole gang is back together before we talk about the real meat and potatoes of this universe. But there are still some very fun and interesting topics that me and True are going to talk about this week. Now, me and True, compared to the other two, we're probably the most in the weeds when it comes to power scaling, when it comes to who would win, how strong is this character. And that has kind of been going the rounds as well with the DCU, considering that James Gunn has been going around. Maybe you've heard of him. And he's been saying some choice words about Superman versus Green Lantern, 2 characters that made their cinematic debut in the Superman movie. Of course, the Lanterns are going to get a lot more lore in their show, introducing Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart. So a lot of this has to do with speculation, as basically all these podcast episodes do. But first and foremost, True, enlighten the audience. What has James Gunn said about Superman versus Green Lantern in the live-action universe, and do you think it makes any sense at all?
So, Gunn's most recent statement was, if Green Lantern and Superman fought, it would be a hard fight, but Superman would win. Which, on the face of it, makes sense if you are taking into account where he said Superman is the strongest hero, metahuman, or hero, same thing. But then there's 2 questions to this always. The question is, Green Lantern, are we talking about Hal, John, or Guy? Because Guy is the one that's around, but obviously the next big DC thing really is the Lanterns, right? And I assume they're trying to gear up for promotion into that. So are they talking about, I mean, I assume Hal would be the one. He's the oldest out of all of those 3 and should be the strongest just by going by, he's the oldest, most experienced. So which Lantern? And this to me, maybe to other people as well, might seem like a little bit of a contradiction, where I've always was of the belief that Superman was the strongest hero by a large margin, right? He wasn't struggling in the movie unless he was holding back and not trying to hurt his opponents. For example, the giant monster they fought at the start, Superman was dealing by that by himself. He was saving everybody. He was doing everything he could to not damage it. The gang came in and they were able to kill it. It took them some effort, but Superman could have done that if he wanted to, but that's not how he wanted to deal with the situation. He wanted to move it to a different location, maybe try to tame it, maybe try to, keep it in captivity somewhere. So then the question is this statement any different from what we've been hearing about Superman is way stronger than the rest? So not way stronger. That's what I'm adding. He said Superman is way stronger. And that movie, I think Crisis agrees, makes it feel like Superman is like a level above the rest of the heroes as well, right?
Yeah, he starts the movie and we're told just through omniscient narration, which is probably the highest form of evidence that you can really have. I think it depends on who you talk to and who puts the most value into what source, but it's in the movie, so it's basically just irrefutably canon. And then it's not tainted by any one person's perspective, right? It's just a text crawl, basically. And it says blatantly, Superman is the most powerful metahuman of all time. And then it even gives, sort of the following statements pin it chronologically. It says 33 years or so ago, or 30 years ago, the most powerful metahuman of all time, was born, crashed on Earth, etc. And then it follows that by saying 3 minutes ago, it was his first loss. So that basically says that for that entire duration, from him being sent to Earth until losing to Ultraman, he is considered the most powerful metahuman of all time. Obviously, it's a very fleshed out universe. We can tell by the mural in the yet to be Hall of Justice, and then as well some statements from James Gunn that heroes have been around for 300 years, metahuman specifically. Superman should be stronger than all of those characters, and obviously in the future, there can be characters to surpass that. It's possible. All of time, I assume, means up until now, not like till the end of time.
Yeah.
Until Death of the Endless closes the door on everything.
Yeah.
But and I think that is conveyed in the movie pretty well. I've kind of argued this myself, but Superman is either holding back, like True said, or he's blatantly not at 100%. I'm of the opinion that he really lost at the beginning of the movie because he had never fought someone even near his power level. He'd only ever won a fight. Now we know the prequel novel's not canon. James Gunn said that, which is kind of disappointing, but that was basically the closest he came. Metallo's off the board. That fight never happened. So we're left to believe Superman kind of just no-diffed everyone he'd ever come across up until then. So he's not used to flexing like that. He's not used to fighting someone near his power. And also, he is a clone of Superman with preparation from the smartest man in the world, which is also kind of funny talking about this because James Gunn has said Lex, at one time, he said he's the smartest by far, but then he keeps saying Mr. Terrific is on that level or rivals him or is maybe near that level. We all collect all these statements as they're made, so we see them and we're like, these simply don't mean the same thing. And I think that reflects as well a little bit with Green Lantern. But yeah, so Superman, he's not at 100%. After the first Ultraman fight, fighting someone that he's just unprepared to fight. And then even the Fortress of Solitude only gets him back to 83%. The Fortress of Solitude, James Gunn said, that's the best place for him to heal. So just sitting around, taking in static sunlight or whatever, that's not going to get him up to 100%. And that's basically all he has to rely on for the rest of the movie after he's poisoned by kryptonite and then further beaten. And then by the end of the movie, he's not at 100%, and he is taking attacks from Ultraman and the Engineer, who are both trying to kill him. And he, is still able to turn the tide and beat both of them by the end of the movie. So I do think he is stronger than Ultraman. I think if there was a hypothetical 100% Superman trying his hardest to knock out Ultraman while Ultraman's trying to kill him, I simply don't think it would be close. I think that's just sort of how it is once you line everything up. But yeah,
I think even
go on.
Just to make a point. So even one of the points that shows us the best is when the Engineer is covered. They're putting the things inside his mouth to try to stop him from breathing. When he's flying up, we see Ultraman is doing damage, and then when he goes up into the air a little bit, and he gets some sunlight, so it's not even a lot of sunlight. Like Ultraman's punches just stop having any effect whatsoever.
Yeah.
Right. So this is after multiple fights, and he's weakened, and even getting this like little boost puts him above Ultraman. So it does seem like that first fight was a scenario of like he probably isn't very skilled. You then have Lex, who is either number one or tied number one or maybe number one in intelligence, who has all this prep time for him, who's watched him do like every single battle, right? Yeah. So it makes sense why he lost in that scenario when it's just like, whoa, I don't know what's going on. Even though if like I have the ability to deal with it, I've never encountered this scenario before, right?
And transitioning that information to what we know about the Green Lanterns, we obviously have Guy Gardner in the movie, in Superman, and it seems like he is totally 100%. He just tries to kill his enemies, or if they're big monsters, he'll just try to kill them. And he was kind of struggling against the kaiju. I mean, when you really lay it out there, it doesn't. I certainly don't get the sense that Superman would have performed honestly as poorly as Guy Gardner. He did the most damage compared to Hawkgirl for sure. There's definitely a hierarchy there. There's a big gap. But I really didn't get the sense. Nathan Fillion, for what it's worth, he is an actor. So
Yeah.
again, talking about kind of the hierarchy of this evidence here, um, actors don't really influence the story. Sometimes maybe in the moment they'll say, "Well, can we try this? What do you think about this?" But the director has ultimate veto power even in those moments. So Nathan Fillion's of the belief that Guy Gardner can't take on Superman. That he kind of thinks that it would be a stomp in Superman's favor.
Yeah.
And what we know so far about the other two Lanterns that are somewhere in the universe, Hal Jordan and John Stewart, is Hal Jordan is a legendary Green Lantern, and there is a statement from, I believe it's the showrunner or writer, one of the top heads of the upcoming Lantern show, is that each of them have the full power of the Green Lantern ring, kind of in response to people being like, is this going to be cheap? Are they going to have their powers? Is it going to be like Titan's Beast Boy, where
Yeah.
he's not even green, barely transforms? Like, what are we getting out of here? And they're like, no, they have the full power of the Lantern rings. And then what we know about Guy is, again, it's basically only from the mouth of the actor, but he says that the Guardians of the Universe, if there's an unsavory mission, which comes across to me like if there's a Black Ops type of thing, if it's like, no chivalry, let's just get something done, then you send Guy Gardner. And to me, that would say he is kind of high tier. Obviously, if you maybe want to take like a macro look at the DCU from what we know based on other events, they were plagued by Starro, right? There were also the Butterflies. If the Guardians of the Universe are privy to that, then you'd think they would send someone like Guy Gardner or whatever Earth Lantern. They'd have to be pretty respectable, right? I mean, Starro is a huge threat. Obviously, was on Argus's radar. And then the Butterflies were also, they were potentially a world-ending, xeno species that were going to take over the Earth. And so you'd have to think, and then also maybe even Blue Beetle, right? We know that the Green Lanterns are involved with the Scarabs. A Green Lantern blasted one of the Scarabs, kind of messed up royally by destroying a planet. But but Earth has already been besieged by multiple different alien factions, so you'd have to think Guy Gardner would be pretty tough. But what do you think? Do you think that is enough to suggest that it would be a close fight, even someone like Hal Jordan? Would you want that to be the case? Do you think that makes for a more interesting universe, or do you think Superman kind of should be that top dog even just right out the gate? What do you think?
It's a rough one, because I do think it's the problem that you have of let's say you have the universe where Superman is clearly the top guy. Okay, that's fine. You now need to make these movies in ways where everybody has a role, right? And that's a hard thing to do. But if you're going to do that, then I think that is the way. But if you can't, like, I don't like the idea of saying Superman is the strongest, but all the relevant characters also scale to him, right? That seems a little bit like you want your cake and to eat it too, but you really don't want to put any of the effort into it. Because for me in this movie, this worked a lot. Like Superman's power level works because it was like very clear that he was stronger, but Gunn also had the intention of like kind of wanting to make him vulnerable, right? So having him lose early on and then stay weakened throughout the movie, yet still be stronger, I feel like is very impressive. Where it shows, okay, listen, someone has kryptonite, somebody, if they plan for him, they can deal with him. That's fine. Now, should Guy, I don't know if Guy, but if you wanted to say like this veteran in Hal Jordan is like Superman level, let's say Superman, and if Superman wanted to actually beat Hal in a fight, he had to like go high diff, like uses the most effort. To me, that makes sense, especially if he's like this veteran who's been around the block. So maybe he's even like lesser than him in power by like a larger gap, but like experience and skills make up for that. For example, right. If he can do different things with his ring that others can't do, for example, then that works for me. It's just it seems like the verse is still evolving, because another one of those statements that's funny to me, because you brought up the intelligence thing, is him saying that Peacemaker would lose to Batman, right? Like just in a straight up fight, I think he said Peacemaker would get creamed by Batman. I'm like, okay, cool. that makes sense to me. That's fine.
Mhm.
But like, do I see that happening? Like, maybe if like it's one of those Peacemaker scenes where Peacemaker is kind of like memeing around, but we see like Peacemaker has hands, right? Like in season 1, he's like weakened the entire time. He's like just out the hospital and he's getting constantly injured again.
Mhm.
Yeah, he's still going, blow to blow with some of these people and some of the, the training statements that he has as well. So it feels like the verse is still evolving at the moment. So maybe we shouldn't take everything as concrete and we should say, okay, let's allow everybody to show up first and then see that interaction between the people before we then come to like a concrete judgment on, okay, which statements does Gunn actually mean and which statements is he using to kind of push the verse as of now, right?
Yeah, I think that's a good point because people online are hyper reactionary to anything, to any crumb. But no, I think James Gunn has similar things. I think even before the movie, he's like, he's had this big imposition to basically nerf Superman, and I don't say that necessarily disparagingly because I think it's a little bit more nuanced than that. He doesn't want like a Christopher Reeve type Superman that can just pull out random powers. And if he can, and it's also interesting, right? Because when we say like this character is really powerful, you'd probably say that means they can hit really hard and they can withstand a lot of damage. And we would specify they have a lot of powers. We'd probably say they have a lot of abilities or hacks, right? So Christopher Reeve can time travel and like reverse time. So he has like a weird hacks ability that most versions of Superman don't really do. Like in the comics, he can time travel, but he's not going to fly around the world and like things, go back in time. That's not really how he does it.
No.
So you'd say like maybe someone like James Gunn would say Christopher Reeve is a more powerful Superman because he's got these weird abilities, and he does not want that to be the case. But then it also does come across like he doesn't want Hawkgirl or Green Lantern to be totally irrelevant. But if you watch the movie, I mean, Hawkgirl and Guy Gardner seem kind of irrelevant to Superman, right? Like,
yeah, it's just so I will say him like them being the ones to go and save the other country was a very like they needed to be there. Right? Superman couldn't have done both at the same time.
Yeah.
So they were relevant in that way. And it's one of those things where I feel like intelligent characters have an easier time being relevant because Mr. Terrific was relevant the entire movie, right? He was needed throughout, to figure out how to stop Lex's like actual technology because Superman couldn't have figured that out based on what we know. Maybe he does have the super intelligence. We'll see.
We'll see.
So it's just like it's a very rough situation. I really don't know how you write it because I think most comic book mediums failed at it, right? If you read comics, and I'm gonna hate. I don't like Batman, man. Listen, I just every single time Superman is fighting some villain and Batman has like a little electric gauntlet and like lands a hit on the villain and damages them, I'm like, Superman looks like a moron here. Like it just doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
Right? Because if he built like if it's like, oh, Batman built this Uber suit, that's a different situation. I don't mind that really as much. But like people really have a hard time finding places for things for other characters to do when you have this person who's like, okay, this is our top guy, and it's not someone like a Hulk who is just like, oh, Hulk is just like a raging monster, so he can't interact in situations like a normal human being, where Superman is just like a regular human. And that situation is going to get, I feel like is going to get worse with the Flash unless they figure something out. Because however we feel about it, I personally do believe that the Flashes should be faster than Superman, whatever you think they're not. Because like it's their thing, right? Like, it ends up being like, to me that makes sense. But then are we going to get into situations of like, the Flash is like blitzing everybody, and then Toyman rolls some marbles on the floor, and he like,
the Batman punches Toyman to stop him.
Yeah, it's just like, are we getting into this like goofy scenario. Like, we've watched The Flash, right? It's just I understand for stories, sometimes things don't need to happen. But like the amount of times in The Flash show where they're in a building dealing with a situation, the villain sets off a bomb and runs out of the building. Flash stops the bomb 1 second later. He runs outside. Is like, man, well, I guess I can't find him. Okay, bro. Like, we saw you like run out of a black hole and you can't find a guy in a car like 3 seconds after you left the building. Like, I understand I have to suspend my disbelief for a certain like percentage. Mm-hmm. But for me, when it becomes consistent, it ends up being stupid. So we just have to. I think he did it well in this movie, but then you just can't have them be the same level as Superman, right? Maybe you have some people be there. By that I mean specifically, please have Wonder Woman be there, but the rest of them, I'm a hater, don't. But yeah, that's my thoughts.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's we look at the MCU and it's like there was a struggle, man. We were in the trenches. We're like, how fast even are these guys? Because you did have, Thor and you got Captain Marvel's feats of flying across, like, surveying entire planets in like seconds, basically. And then you're like, well, base Captain America, before even getting the hammer, is like kicking bloodlusted Thanos in the face and lifting his shield in time to block a punch from him. And it's like, it just everyone you can kind of this daisy chain. You really can just go down the whole list once you have like Captain America, Black Widow, Hawkeye. Like, it's pretty ridiculous when you think about it.
Yeah.
These people that you wouldn't think, like Black Widow might be able to dodge Captain Marvel, once you really lay it all out there. And it's like that. It's definitely not something that they necessarily intended or ever thought about, but it's obviously somewhere that we could get with this universe. And I do feel like it's kind of inevitable just because you can't have Batman do nothing. Like Mr. Terrific. Yeah, I agree. But like Mr. Terrific in this movie, right? It's like, we don't know. He's probably not enhanced. James Gunn is like, if he's a metahuman, it's only because he's so smart that there's like something different. Like, he's got like a different kind of brain.
Right. Okay.
Him and Lex. But as far as he's not super strong. He was knocking out the Raptors, which I'd assume they're in like bulletproof armor, right? So knocking them out barehanded or whatever. He's got like leather fingerless gloves. It's pretty crazy. But
for a regular guy.
Yeah, but you have like, he's flying around in his little chair that I assume is responding to his own stimulus, his brain, right? His human brain, and he's flying around and he's like reacting like Hawk Girl and Green Lantern. Green Lantern Guy Gardner's probably flying to Oa every other week, which is I doubt it's in our solar system.
No, there's no shot, right?
There's no shot. Yeah, there's no shot. Oa is like, behind Mars. So he has to be super stupid fast. And they're all like kind of keeping up with each other, especially if Guy Gardner is like, I'm going to kill this monster immediately. He's probably not going to slow down for anything. So it's certainly tough. And I think we're just going to have to see really how it pans out. I think by now, we kind of, I believe in a prior stream, we did talk about like the tier list we have. But yeah, I think Superman, Ultraman, probably Supergirl. And it's interesting because James Gunn has this agenda. He says that at one time everyone's kind of close, but then he's like, no, yeah, Superman would beat Supergirl because he's just a bigger person. They're both Kryptonian, but Superman is a big man and Supergirl is a tiny little woman, so it's not close. And
okay, does that like, come on, like Gunn? What does that mean? She can't beat Lobo? Like, I assume Lobo's going to be bigger than her. Like, what does that mean?
I don't know. So it's going to be strange to see how it pans out. And I also think it's kind of like, and again, we talk about this, like James Gunn is the author of this universe, but then he's also going to be giving total creative liberty to all the different writers and showrunners. So are they going to have, like, are they going to be adherent to Guy Gardner's feats, right? Are they going to say, Guy Gardner was at this level in Superman, we are going to prove that Hal Jordan is way better, or is that even going to matter to them, right? Because it just seems to be totally subject to the different directors and writers, it seems.
Yeah, it'll have to be like a weird thing of like, okay, maybe you just can't go against established things, and maybe if it's like maybe being sort of established, maybe then you can like play around with it, because I don't imagine them being like, oh yes, Hal Jordan, the strongest person to ever set foot on Earth, right?
Yeah.
I just don't imagine that being a statement, because and this always goes to the problem of that 300-year statement, strongest metahuman, and then every single literal random thing is a metahuman, right?
Yeah.
It's a go back down to that, because I hope we go to Oa, and I hope we see the Guardians. If you ever hear me talk, I hate on the Guardians all the time, but I do like them. I think they're cool. But are they going to be weaker than Superman? Like, that's not a crazy thing to me, right? But the problem is, I do like the idea of Superman having a level of progression, right? In this movie, his first fights, like, would I eventually like to see this Superman do the solar flare? Like, that's something I'd want to see, right? I'd want to see him maybe develop his powers or the way that he uses his abilities more over time. I wouldn't like him for him to be stationary. Oh, he's strong and that's it. And then it's a weird thing because of what happens in the movies versus what the writers think, right?
Yeah.
Because if you were to ask any of those Marvel writers, hey, is Black Widow as fast as Captain Marvel? Not a single one would say yes.
Yeah.
But then if I was just to show them, okay, she can fight Cap, maybe Cap's slightly faster. That's fine. But Cap can fight Thanos, right?
Yeah.
And then Thanos is like beating up these guys. So what do we like? What am I supposed to take from that?
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
It's just
base Captain America is able to put his shield up fast enough to block a strike from Thanos. The same Thanos who in the same scene grabbed Iron Man faster than Iron Man could react, held him up, and blocked Stormbreaker, Thor, Mjolnir, attack. So it's like, could Black Widow dodge a full on killing intent throw of Mjolnir? Like, I guess, right? Like, I guess so.
That's what the movie has told us. Like, I can't say no to that, right? Like,
yeah, it's right there.
And the only time they've ever done a speedster was Quicksilver, right? And he was clearly faster.
Yeah.
Now, again, I bring this up every time. We still have no Flash news, no major Flash news. But, like, I don't want characters to be sacrificed on the altar of Batman. I'm tired, boss.
Yeah.
I'm real tired. Like, I want the Flash to be the fastest. And if what we're hoping is correct, where the first movie is not a single villain and it's a group villain, then you can have somebody that's just Flash level speed wise, right?
Yeah.
Now everybody has their own, like, they have to go and deal with their own villains in different pockets type of thing, and that works. I just thought of a funny thing. Parademons. In all media, parademons are always funny to me because Batman and regular heroes can fight them and they just beat them up.
Yep.
But then sometimes these parademons be like beating up people like Green Lantern. I was like, okay, well,
what's going on here? Yeah, it's like again, the MCU. It's like Bucky with a machine gun can kill the Outriders, but then like 10 of them are overpowering the Hulkbuster and like cutting through the armor. So it's like, the Mark 1 Iron Man suit was like tanking machine gun fire. So what's
when
going
he made
on
it in
here?
the cave, right?
Yeah, of just like, sheet metal. But yeah, no. So it could definitely get nutty. It could get confusing, and that's using only the movies themselves. It gets that like weird and like, what are they thinking? So once you add author statements or directors or writers or whatever, it can muddy the waters even more sometimes, which you'd hope they would just only ever illuminate, something. You'd go, this isn't a movie, it confuses me. Can you please give me a rational explanation? But sometimes it's the opposite. But you said something about Superman being static, just having a flat power level, and maybe sometimes he holds back, sometimes he doesn't. We have gotten a little bit of insight from James and David Cornsweet, where David has talked about conversing with James Gunn, because David said he was kind of worried that Superman would come off as weak in the first movie. And James Gunn was like, he can grow. He'll grow into maybe some level, maybe even a Christopher Reeve type, aura that James Gunn is imagining. Because it's weird when you think about, when you look at like James Gunn's statements and his sort of Superman lexicon, because it's clear, he grew up reading Superman comics in like the 70s and 80s, right? And obviously comics, can be inconsistent. They can have weird power levels, but I think infamously that was the era in which Superman could like sneeze away entire planets and move, solar systems worth of planets on like a giant chain. And even if you told someone like this guy is like a living universe, right? There's that one Superman villain that he fights. This is a living universe. Yeah. And Superman can punch him and knock him out. People would go, "Oh, okay, that we get that." But they would then say Superman like sneezing away a bunch of planets. They're like, this is ridiculous. Like the size of a feat can break someone's suspension of disbelief. Whereas so bad, but like the lore of a feat, that's totally acceptable. We can grasp that. So you have to wonder, what does James Gunn mean when he's like what does it mean to James Gunn for a Superman to be too strong? And what could full potential corn sweat DCU Superman look like based on that?
Yeah, because I think it's actually so what you said that actually hits on a lot, because those older feats where like they're doing these things that are just kind of not silly, but like absurd on the face of them.
Yeah.
Right. It's funny, but it's like, man, is that better? Like, is that a better feat than like Superman being able to fight Mageddon, where he's like, where we know what Mageddon is, but like on page, it's not like a super crazy thing. It's probably not, right? And it's like, I think as comics have evolved, we're getting less of that like really crazy stuff, unless it's like cosmic beings, right? You had Perpetua throwing universes around, right? But like people understand that. They're like, oh, it's the creator throws things around, cool. But if Superman was to do that, I think people would complain. Even if Superman was to fight somebody who like the page before destroyed the universe, it's like, okay, well, like what, just like what people are willing to accept before it becomes absurd, I think is
like World Forger in the comic books, and these are the deep cut conversations that probably only me and True could talk about here. But World Forger created Hypertime, which is like an infinite number of infinite universes, just ridiculous. Right. And then Superman punched him one time and, knocked him out. And Superman's gotten stronger than ever after that, like multiple times over. Like he's gotten power ups and the power creep. But if you had like Doomsday fighting Superman, and it's like a pocket dimension, right? And Superman like, I don't have to hold back, let's go. And he just punches Doomsday so hard that it like destroys the entire reality. And they're in like a blank space or something, people would just not accept that. I don't think that would make it through DC editorial. Like the editor of the book would be like, what are you doing here, man?
Yeah, it's just, it's such a weird thing to see what like people are willing to accept as like, this is a strong feat or strong character, right? It's, I don't know. I don't know how you could get past that. Maybe he doesn't want to deal with that situation. I can understand wanting like, because I feel like you have the Superman fans, right? Like you have because at the end of the day, what's most important to like, I think the Superman fans is like the characterization is like, okay, we talk about this, like Corn Sweat feels like he could have been in like, replace him in any of the comics. And that makes sense to me type thing, right? So Gunn knows he has that. Now he's trying to like bring in like a different audience where it's like, okay, there is that like, it's frustrating. It's always super frustrating to me. The audience of people who are like, man, Superman is too strong. Nobody fights him. I'm just like, okay, maybe goons can't fight him.
Yeah.
But also goons can't fight Batman either. What do we like? When was the last time Batman lost to a random goon? Right? It takes an actual villain, right? It takes like Doomsday or Darkseid to fight Superman.
Yeah.
And it's not like he's not trying against these guys, right? Some of them maybe not a brainiac, but Doomsday is that guy that he has to try against. So it's not but like that's the public sentiment. So you have to. I don't think you can not address it. I do like Gunn for addressing it and saying, hey, this Superman feels like whatever. And I also like what there was a lot of conversations about if Superman was weak.
Mm-hmm.
And surprising to me, you had a lot of like comic adjacent channels, so kind of maybe they do anime, maybe they do comics. They were able to understand the concept of, hey, Superman was weakened, right?
Mm.
So that the other people could hurt him, even though he's still strong, right? And the only criticism I've heard that I think is maybe a little bit valid is the idea of when a character is so strong that you have people kind of beat them or you have them be weakened so that people can fight them. If you do this too often, people will just eventually think that character is weak, right?
Yep.
But this is one movie. I don't think we're at that point yet, right?
So. Yeah, no, there's a lot of room to grow. You mentioning that about how if it becomes like a trope, then it's kind of just annoying. It kind of just devalues the character. Is in the DC animated universe, that's the problem they had with Superman in the earlier seasons of Justice League, where they're like, well, we want to raise the stakes basically every episode. So the villain, if they beat Superman, they would figure their calculation was that the audience would go like, oh, this is crazy. How are they going to win? How are they going to defeat this villain? But really, eventually, they kept doing it. And all it amounted to is the audience going, well, Superman is like, he sucks. Like he's a wimp. And so that's where you get the, World of Cardboard speech to kind of justify those poor showings within the fiction itself. He has a rational justification for why he's not just knocking out everybody, in one punch. He's afraid that if he actually puts his back into it, he'll kill everybody. And I think that is something super exciting that I would love to see for the future of the Superman. And we talked a little bit too about Superman potentially, like you mentioned, the solar flare. Superman has a lot of interesting power-ups that he could accrue over the movies to sort of amp him up. You mentioned the solar flare, which is where a high level of solar energy accumulates in his body, and then he's able to sort of blow up. He's able to sort of, do a Vegeta final explosion type attack. He also has this blue electricity in the comics. And then obviously, we've never really seen Sun Dip Superman in the movies.
No,
I think in Superman and Lois and maybe in Smallville we saw it, but Brandon Routh got kind of close to the sun. Henry Cavill flew in front of it and like hovered in a Jesus pose as he oft did. But if we got Corn Sweat flying into the sun, coming out, he's yellow, he's got an aura.
Yeah,
that would be super sick. And then a World of Cardboard speech as well. I think if you just did that verbatim in a movie, I'd start freaking out, bro. I'd be throwing my popcorn.
The moment I heard that first line, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah.
What we have here is a rare opportunity for me to cut loose. It would just be so. Yeah, it'd be so good.
Especially if you saved it, right? If people kind of forget about that idea, and it's like 15 years in, it's like, oh, wait a minute, right? Yeah. It's one of those. It would be super satisfying. I also wanted to get your thoughts on powers. So we got it a little bit recently with the tactile telekinesis, right? If this is a power that Kryptonians have, right? Some of them, Listen, Superboy is the one that really Connor Kent is the one that really has this, right? Where you can actually move things. The tactile telekinesis, for people who don't know, is when Kryptonians are holding things, they project an aura around the object, which is why they can lift heavy things without it breaking apart. Right. That's the justification we give. Recently, and in All-Star Superman, they show this aura. Mm-hmm. And Superman was able to shape it into like a bigger version of him to use. Is that an ability you'd want to see, or do you think that's a little bit too comic booky?
Like the Susano giant, energy projection of Superman.
Maybe not go that far straight away, but maybe you see like the energy around him as he's like picking up a bunch of bricks type thing, right? And then evolve into something like that later on. Would you want to see that, or
that concept? I think with Connor Kent in particular, they kind of evolved it and made it like an interesting sort of wrinkle of his power set. But particularly with Superman, it comes across kind of like a lot of people criticize the Speed Force. I think mainly really it was Greg Wiseman, the showrunner for Young Justice. He's like, the Speed Force is kind of dumb. Like people are like, oh, so when Wally, disappears or whatever, he's in the Speed Force, and he's like, there's no Speed Force. Does Superman have a Strength Force? When Batman's like sneaking around, is there a Sneak Force? Like these guys have powers, and the Speed Force kind of exists to say when Flash is like running, why does his clothes or like his hair burn up, or like when he picks someone up, why doesn't they get turned to liquid?
Yeah.
That obviously there are more abilities the Speed Force offers, but at a base level, that's the sort of purpose it served, and similar with tactile telekinesis. But a lot of superheroes pick stuff up and they don't break, like if you were to pick up a building and you're like a 6'4" guy and you're pushing it with enough force to raise the whole thing, the rest of it would cave inward, just based on real world physics. But Iron Man, that never, like Hulk, that never happens. Like, do they all have a special force field ability? Like in the movie, he lifts up that building, and it's all staying as one piece of thing there. So maybe he does have it in the movies. As far as like if he uses it as like a big super form, I don't know. I mean, James Gunn loves his kaijus. There's basically been a kaiju in every James Gunn movie since like Guardians 2. There's been a giant monster of some kind. So I don't know if the audience isn't ready for Superman to like push a planet on a big chain. I'm not sure if they're ready for him to become like a big giant Superman.
Oh man, I don't know. Come on, guys.
Get with the program.
Yeah. It's just the funny thing of having to explain away like that when you were talking, that reminded me a lot of the Grant Morrison "Where does Batman refuel the Batmobile" conversation. It's like, okay, like. It's funny because I think explaining it then puts more holes into everybody else. Because if you didn't explain the Superman one, right? Yeah. Now when, I guess Green Lantern, when whoever's strong picks up a building, nobody has to make any statements.
Yeah.
Or like when you say the Speed Force protects the area around where the Flashes are running, it's okay. When Superman's not quite their speed, but he's almost their speed, is that just not enough to do anything to the ground? It's like, okay.
Yeah. Like Wonder Woman picks up heavy stuff. She's also really fast. She's never killed anybody by like moving them really fast. She's never like.
I mean, you could just say it's like one of the enhancements the gods gave her.
They all have some. At that point, just don't even make an excuse. Just don't even say it.
Oh man, yeah. Listen. Yeah, you then just get to the point where you have to justify everything. I don't. It's weird because I think in the history of comic books, it was always going to happen. Somebody was going to try to justify every single thing. People want to, you'll have somebody reading comics as a kid. They'll grow up. They'll have like a specific obsession with like one point of law. And then they'll go and write about that. It's like, okay, did we really need this to be expounded on? Not particularly, but I'll accept it, I guess.
Parallax is what caused Hal Jordan's temples to go white. It was parallax. Yeah, no, comics are filled with stuff like that. But I think we've honed in on the Superman thing. Based on the movie itself, he probably is the strongest just by a wide margin. And it's yet to be seen if Hal Jordan is like on a completely different tier than Guy Gardner. If they're relative, I would just say Superman is still a lot stronger based on the kaiju fight, based on Superman not giving a damn about the imp fighting in the background, etc. And then obviously in the movie, he's just the most powerful metahuman, right? Just omniscient narration says that. And then in the movie itself, there's just a lot of justification. He's either it comes down to inexperience or kryptonite poisoning, and then by the end, he's kryptonite poisoned. He's still not 100%, and he ultimately beats Engineer and Ultraman despite being at a pretty big deficit, on paper. So Superman's not a wimp. James Gunn contradicts himself a lot lately. A lot of, it just comes down to we have to wait and see. The movies are always the ultimate proof, and that's the way it is. That's the way it's always going to be. But talking about another interesting subject, we have a little bit of time here. I knew there wasn't so much to say because a lot of this is kind of like, okay, cool, but we just don't know. We don't know where it's going to go, but the Clayface movie has begun shooting, and with that, the fact that they are shooting at real locations means it's basically impossible to hide details of the set. So civilians, people working on the movies, they are taking photos of a lot of the set dressing and posting it on the internet. And Garrick put it very well. This is like Arkham series level environmental, sort of Easter eggs. I'll preface this because, as we always say, who knows how it's going to go, but that kind of goes doubly here because set dressing is not like necessarily empirical evidence of anything. It's like someone has a job to make the movie look like a DC movie. So they're going to put things here and there. An example of that with Superman is there was a bar or something. I think it was a bar. And the name of the bar was named after the bar that Futures and Tim Drake opened after the rest of the Teen Titans had died, right?
Yeah.
Is that a hint that we're going to get a Futures End movie and Tim Drake is going to be like a bearded adult and become Batman Beyond? Probably not. But
hopefully not.
Hopefully not. And a lot of what these things too come down to as well is when you're shooting in a real location, you have to work with what you're given, right? So what is an easier thing to do if you're shooting in a scene, you're shooting on location, there's a music shop or venue, a music venue in the real world that exists on the street. What's easier to do? Take everything out, gut the store, replace it with Planet Krypton or something, turn it into a different establishment altogether, or say, okay, this was a music venue, there's a music venue in DC, let's make it look like that, right? Because you can see through the window and it's not world breaking, right? You're not going to put, and I'll just start by saying Black Canary's business, Black Canary is referenced famously in DC Comics, and it was in Birds of Prey, the movie as well. She's a singer, performer in certain iterations. So that's an example where, like, if there's a McDonald's in the shot, you change it into Big Belly Burger. You don't change it into, Black Canary's something or other.
Yeah. Well, actually, a question on that. Was the first Canary in the JSA poster?
I don't think so. That might be worth Googling. I feel like that would have been bigger news. Yeah, you look that up here. I'll waffle about what the signage could mean, but Black Canary, very interesting character. The movie's obviously set in Gotham. Black Canary is not solely a Gotham-focused character, but she is a part of the Gotham City Sirens in some iterations, but more prominently the Birds of Prey, which often has a lot of Bat Family member inclusions, as does all DC teams, really, when you boil everything down. Barbara Gordon and her have a close working relationship. Throw Huntress in there. That's another Gothamite. So if this means anything, likely means some Birds of Prey. Did you find out anything? Is she in?
No, she's not there. She's not there, which is...
Do you have anything to say about Black Canary being in the DCU and Clayface and Batman, Brave and the Bold?
Yeah. So you were saying all that, but one thing that I think is super interesting is the Joker mural where it says join. Let me quickly find it. Yep.
It says corruption is the enemy of the people. March against the GCPD. Park Row this Saturday. Join the Joker.
Yeah, that's interesting to me. Because
that seems pretty intentional for set dressing.
Yes, right?
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to think, okay, what is their version of Joker that could publicly be known as the Joker already, but yet be allowed to go and march?
You're marching with him.
Yeah.
Against the cops.
Which is so... That to me was the thing that I was like, oh, this is... I wonder what this take on the Joker is. Because for me, the other things can be like set dressing, like you said, but this has to be like intentional. Okay,
Yeah.
we have an idea for what we want for the Joker. I feel like this is a character that you can't not have an idea for what you're gonna have for the verse, right? And is this like the first hint of is he gonna be like more of a political figure? Is he like going to be like when we talk about the clown prince of crime? Is he going to be like a legitimate mobster who the police can't get away because he's hiding his crimes like regular mobsters, but everybody
Yeah.
knows he's the one doing it type thing,
Right.
leaves his calling card. Like that's a very, very interesting take for me. I do love it. I like the aesthetics of all the posters where it's kind of like not goofy, but a little bit cartoony in the way all the posters are put up. I like the feel of the world already based on these posters that have been put up. It kind of reminds me a lot of the Fallout little cartoon animations if you see for the Fallout Boy. I think it reminds me a little bit of that. I really like it.
Kind of Batman the Animated Series, and that kind of like it seemed like with Fallout, it's a kind of a retro aesthetic, but it's still
Yes.
kind of like withered and baked into the world.
Yep.
But yeah, that and as well as the Joker, there's graffiti that says "Joker's Rule," which it's plural. It's not. There's not an apostrophe, so it's not like Joker possessive. It's Joker's Rule, which could imply the Jokers is like a gang.
I think that's probably the Joker's gang.
Yeah. So
Unless you
very
want 3
interesting.
Jokers.
Yeah, yeah. There's 3 Jokers. His the mayor, his running mate, and whatever. There's 3 Jokers and running Gotham.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think there's absolute Batman, which we haven't seen a lot of the Joker, but it seems like he is kind of like a Lex Luthor type, criminal. He's
Batman
very rich. He's got his fingers in like official channels. So it might be something sort of like that. It's interesting that he's the Joker, and he's apparently, he's got some sway. Corruption is the enemy of the people. I believe in the comics, Punchline kind of had that affinity for Joker in that respect, where she's like, you represent like anarchy against the system. So it could even be like Joker is a contemporary depiction, but in a commentary on like the way the real world works, we often see that these criminals or these extremists, their actions do kind of begin at grassroots, like they become icons in a way. Like if Joker's running around blowing up cop cars and torturing police chiefs, he's doing it because he thinks it's funny and to mess with Batman. But if you hate the cops, and if you think the cops, which the Gotham cops are corrupt, is basically only Gordon holding it down, then you could maybe twist it. You could have a twisted perspective and say, well, Joker is the enemy of the enemy is my friend. Everyone hates the cops. Joker plagues the police and Batman. So maybe that's a good thing. But
and it'd be interesting if it's like, he's paying the corrupt cops and then also going to attack them afterwards. So he's just playing both sides, right?
Right.
This is like a very Joker-esque thing to be on both sides of that altercation.
Yeah. So it's clear they have a defined, like the way we're talking about it. I think you put it well before. You're like, they get paid to do it. We're just doing it for free. So I would say that is for sure an implication of they are thinking about this. They have an in with Joker. They have an angle that isn't typically something we've seen before, whether he be like the 1989 Jack Nicholson portrayal or the Heath Ledger portrayal. I mean, in a way, the Joker movie, the first movie, kind of a similar angle there, where the Gotham is so terrible that the civilians would sooner latch onto the villain who just wants to destroy everything for the sake of it. But yeah, so maybe it is kind of similar to that, but I doubt there'll be as much singing and dancing.
And I assume he'll actually be the Joker, not just Jack or
Right.
whatever his bro's name was.
Arthur Fleck, my
Arthur.
favorite DC villain of all time. Um, a bit rapid fire here. There's one that I want to particularly talk about, but Sionis Industries
Mhm.
branding. Roman Sionis is Black Mask.
Yeah.
The Sionis that's a family business. If you play the Arkham games, you know that he's got like a son and etc.
Yeah.
So, but Black Mask, he kind of has filled that role of like he's a disfigured supervillain, but he somehow has like an office and like
Yeah.
like underlings, that he's kind of a blue collar criminal.
Do you know what's weird? I feel like Black Mask is everywhere. Like in every Batman adaptation, like he might be there more than the Joker. But
He's a cool.
yeah.
I think he's underutilized as a villain, and I would love to see him in a movie. I would love to see
With a
him
more
be.
major role.
Yeah, there's not a lot of Batman being like, I'm going against crime. It's always like I'm going against crime, and then they hire Scarecrow or they hire Joker, right? Like it's
Yeah.
always like a criminal villain like Black Mask as just the sole villain, the sole problem. I think that could be very interesting.
Yeah, like trying to like take down the organization and find the weak spot. Like it's something that I think would be interesting. Maybe the Batman would fit something like that.
Yeah.
Right. With what we had, with how much details you have on Penguin as well. I assume he's gonna have to deal with Penguin in a movie, right? Unless that show's getting a second season.
I hope so. I mean, I would be fine with either personally. Not to talk about the Batman too much, but we do actually have allusions to both Batman and the Penguin as well in the set photos here. There's one big pro, which is also kind of a nothing now. James kind of debunked it. But a lot of people, if you're still in the Battinson DCU camp, it seems like some random guy slapped on a sticker with the Robert Pattinson Batman logo, which it is a pretty unique logo. It's not really ever been in the comics. Somebody probably had to make a stencil of that themselves.
Yeah.
But that was seen on the Clayface set. However, James Gunn on Threads said, I don't know what that is. Some random guy put that there. I did not approve of that. So, I mean,
that's one of those where I think we can take the word of God statement on that one. Like a Batman logo, I assume is going to be like, hey, here's a big reveal. We've worked for half a year on this. Yeah, It's not going to be leaked on a set photo for.
It's on a trash can, actually. Like there could not be a less glamorous reveal of maybe the most important part of Batman's costume. But yeah, that is a good point. He's talking about how, he's thinking, does he want it to be blue and gray? Does he want all black? Like he's clearly being very methodical of that. So that is a good point. I don't think it's.
Please be blue and gray. Like if you're going to have Superman be that colorful, you have to have Batman stand next to him and be as colorful.
I want the trunks on the outside. And
I agree.
At least through some part of the movie, I want the white eyes. Just here's all you need to do, man. He's intimidating a criminal. The criminal's scared out of his mind, and he sees Batman with the white eyes because that's intimidating. Or he gets detective vision and he's got white eyes or something. Just I like it, man. It's in the comics.
I need him to either like I think the easiest way to do is like some shadowy warehouse. He comes out. He's got the he's fully covered and he has the white eyes. The silhouette plus white eyes. Come on, timeless. Yeah. You can't hate on it, right?
And then this is also another little Easter egg that seems to fly in the face of Battinson merger stands. Is it says, "Behold the Penguin Man," now at Amusement Mile, and it shows a disgruntled, looks like version of Oswald Cobblepot. It's a man. The big nose, black hair, wearing a tuxedo, and he's sort of in the shape of a penguin, and he's sort of sad, looking at a picture of a penguin, of a real penguin. So it seems like Penguin in the DCU, based on what we know, is not going to be Oz Cobb, you know,
Not
gangster
a
pulled up from the bootstraps and you know, becomes this tuxedo wearing sort of kind of comic accurate penguin by the end of that show, but more or less his own spin. He's going to be some circus freak penguin goblin man.
which is again, I wonder if this is because of the Penguin show, where it's like, okay, if we went the same like criminal boss, crime lord, we either can't really focus on him because that's two Penguin things,
Yeah.
right? Or just make him completely different, so we have the option to go back to him if we want to do Penguin, and it's like distinct enough. But yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of people were feeling up. They were up on it. They were saying Battinson merge, here we go. But the logo was debunked, and it seems like the Penguin is going to be a totally different take on the character. But saving the best for last, we have a Flying Grayson poster. We have what looks to be some pretty old, some pretty weathered, some aged posters, advertisement for the Flying Grayson show at presumably at Haley Circus. I can look up here, Flying Grayson Clayface. I believe it is one. Yeah, so all we see one acrobat. Kind of looks like a Dick Grayson. Kind of looks like a young boy with black hair. And he's swinging from tightrope. And I believe the image is cut off. We don't see the full image, but it looks like it reads Amusement Mile at the bottom, which Amusement Mile is typically the carnival. I think Staten Island in New York is where they have their carnival set up. Amusement Mile is the Gotham equivalent of that. So this might be Dick Grayson. The poster might be an actual look at Dick Grayson.
The first look of the DCU.
The first look of DCU Dick Grayson. And this one does not look like... It looks pretty high effort. It's not like with Black Canary or the Sionis thing, where it's kind of like just very generic, low effort. You just get the graphic design intern to whip up a little thing. It looks very intentional. It looks like a genuine kind of carnival advertisement. And I mean, that's it right there. We have Bloodhaven was referenced in Creature Commandos. Bloodhaven was name dropped in the Peacemaker Season 2 alternate universe. And now Clayface, set in the main DCU Gotham, we have the Graysons are canon. As far as we know, if the poster appears on screen, the Graysons are canon to the DC universe. Say,
he went out of his way to say that Batman logo isn't canon.
Yeah,
nothing about. Again, this is another one of those situations where this is something that is now part of the verse, right? The Flying Graysons are here, so you can't. It would be the worst case scenario if you was to say, "Well, nah, actually, right? you let this one slip through." Yeah, you let this one slip through. Like you can't back out at this point, right? So,
no, absolutely, but.
Rough,
all very exciting stuff. We are here at over an hour. We talked about Superman power scaling. We talked about basically any little crumb or crumblet that we could have derived from the Penguin, or I'm sorry, the Clayface set leaks that included the freakish Penguin Man that will haunt my nightmares. But moving forward, next time that we talk, we'll probably be covering the next Peacemaker episode, as well as any other rumors, as well as any other James Gunn thread statements that we're able to scrape from the bottom of the barrel. But with all that said, thank you for watching. This is the DCU Experience. This is Crisis signing out.
Peace. Y'all.